everybody, I'm Nate Beck and I'm here with YesWelder, and this is the second part of our Horseshoe wine rack. Last week we did the sides. With the MP200 on the TIG setting. This is a multi-process machine that does TIG, stick, MIG, flux core, and plasma. Last week we did TIG, and this week we're doing MIG. And we're gonna talk about the differences between MIG and TIG, why you would choose which one, and why sometimes, like on a project like this, it's nice to mix it up and get to work on a lot of your different welding skills. So let's just jump right in and get to it. So first we gotta set the machine up for MIG. We're gonna head over there. All right, so last week we were using the lift TIG function of this machine. Until you get to MIG, we're gonna go home, spin the dial. That's flux core, here's MIG. We're gonna select. Now with MIG, we're gonna have a couple different things that we gotta set up correctly. Up here on the top left is gonna be what gas are we using. So today we're using an argon CO2 mix, 75-25, which is pretty standard. This machine can also change to 100% argon, 80% argon, 20% CO2, 75-25, or 100% CO2. So it's very flexible in that standard. We're gonna be using 035 steel wire. So we're gonna make sure that setting's correct. We're gonna want a 2T on our trigger on our MIG gun. So what that means is as we pull the trigger, that's only when it's gonna feed wire. If we wanna click it on and off for a continuous feed, we're gonna go to 4T, but I like 2T, that one's a personal preference. We're gonna decide what material thickness we're welding today. Because this Horseshoe wine rack is kind of a unique weld, we're not looking for full penetration because we don't want it to burn through the backside of the weld, so that would be the front side of the wine rack. I'm not gonna worry too much about the material thickness. And then we got burn back, so if you're getting a lot of burn back on the tip of your wire, you can adjust that. And then one of the coolest settings here is memory. So once we figure out what we like, we can save it in our memory. And then that way we can pull it up real easily the next time we're welding if we like those settings. And then of course here we have our amps and wire feed speed, and then our volts. All right, so last week we were doing TIG, right? You got the TIG torch in one hand and then you have a filler rod in the other, and as you're going along, you're adding filler rod. What MIG does is combines those two actions into one situation. So we have our filler rod, or our wire, on the inside of the MIG gun, and when we pull the trigger, it comes out and feeds out, and then our arc is started, and is a continuous feed because of the spool inside the welder here. That's happening. So, what's nice about this is for something like this, where we're gonna be doing a lot of tacking, which means we're gonna put it together before we actually weld it, and we're gonna need one hand to hold it. It's nice because I don't need to use my other hand for filler rod. So that's kind of nice. Ching ching, we're good to go. So I'm gonna throw my helmet on real quick and we'll get to welding. Here we are. So we have our base that we're gonna put groove side up, and we have one of our sides and we're gonna go groove side out. And what I like to do is kind of just let it sit in the groove here and find it, and you kind of move it around a little bit until you'll feel the bottom of the shoe on the top click in to the groove in the bottom shoe. And then I just like to take a look from all angles and make sure it's even this way. I'm gonna be looking at not only the distance between the outside of the base and the inside here to see if that's equal, but I'm also be looking at the center here. The center line mostly is what I'm gonna look at to make sure we're centered. Is this between, and that looks real spot on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw 2 tacks, one on the backside here and one on the backside here. Double check to make sure it's centered. There we go. And this is what I'm talking about, what's nice about MIG, because I need to hold it with my right hand, and I'm gonna tack it with my left hand, and I'm gonna tack it, which is just throwing a quick little zap right here and right here. now I can take a look and make sure that I like the spacing and everything. So when you tack something, it's gonna hold, but like a little bit of force is gonna break it back open. That looks good to me. It also looks good this way too. Also keep in mind, if you tack it and maybe you held it a little, it was tilted out a little bit, keep in mind when you do weld it, it's gonna pull in a little bit. So it's not the worst thing in the world if it's tilting that way. If it's tilting in, you're gonna wanna push it out a little bit. So this looks good to me. So I'm gonna do 2 welds, one at the bottom here and one at the bottom here. All right, so now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, get it in the groove, check the alignment of the middle here, to the middle and the bottom. See now, like I said, this is the time where if it's bending in a little bit, you can just slightly, very carefully bend it back out a little bit. When you're bending on a tack, you gotta be real careful, otherwise you'll snap it right off, which isn't a big deal because you can just re-tack it, but better to just not have to be in that situation. There we go. You'll feel it when it starts to bend. All right, that's cool. All right, so now we're gonna weld it up. All right, so we've got the base of these welded on. Now we just have to do the end caps. But with MIG welding, that's the sound is what you're looking for, right? With TIG, it's a lot about the feel of how the rod's going into the puddle. With MIG, it's all about the sound. You want that sizzling bacon sound. What's great about the MP200 is it kind of demystifies MIG settings because you have wire feed speed, volts, amps, and if you're setting all these independent and you don't understand how they work together, it can be really confusing and frustrating trying to get that sizzling bacon sound. But what the MP200 does is that it knows what you're doing. It knows what wire you're using. It knows what gas mixture you're using. It knows the thickness of the material you're welding on, so we can get your settings, if not perfect, really close. Then you only need like a personal preference tweak and you're gonna get that frying bacon every time. So lastly, we got to do the end caps. So we're going to clean this up a little bit. As you can see, there's a little bit of spatter here on the table. That's why I like to put down another piece of flat metal, so this doesn't get all, you know, gross and nasty on our nice welding table here. So I'm going to clean this up real quick, and then we're going to do those end caps. All right, so for the end caps, what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the shoes and turn them upside down like this, and we're going to be welding them onto the ends, like so. This is nice that way if you have like 3 bottles of wine in there and you need to move it, it's like a little handle that you can pick it up and move it with. And this is where MIG also comes in handy because we also have to hold this while we tack it. Whereas if we were TIGging this, we would have to have a jig on it or some more clamps, which is why I love MIG welding when it comes into this kind of stuff right here. So we're just gonna check some fitment right now. The goal is to get the 2 ends and the 2 ends here to meet up, and then swing it up and then get it even here. And what I'm doing is I'm basically running my finger right here and just feeling how much overhang there is and then looking down to make sure it's straight up and down. And that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna throw on my hood, give this a tack. Perfect. That's the other thing that's nice about MIG over TIG too, is like when we're getting into weird spaces like this, it's real tight in there. It's really hard sometimes to get your torch in there and filler rod in there at the same time. Whereas with MIG, you're just trying to get that one thing in there, that one, just the tip of your gun in there. website, and there we have it, the Horseshoe wine rack done on the YesWelder MP200 using MIG and TIG. Really getting a project to get you comfortable with both the differences and further honing your welding skills. Please come back next week and check it out where we do stick and plasma on the next project. But until then, please like, please share, and please subscribe to the YesWelder YouTube channel. We'll see you soon.